He's the keeper of the secrets, Kristen. Now we at least have, the truth is, our third season has to explore the legend of Split River and why so many people, so many kids have died in that school. And, what does Mr. Martin know? And Janet now is not going to be, she's going to get answers. Now that you've seen
Yeah.
Janet on her own, she's going to get answers.
Hi, Kristen Maldonado from Pop Culture Planet. So good
Hello.
to have you guys again.
Yes, we're excited.
I love this season. You guys really you took it to the next level. Uh, it was crazy.
Thank
So
you.
I have so many burning questions for you guys. I hope I can get through them all.
Jump in, fire.
So first, I'd love to hear about bringing, our living and dead cast together. I feel like, in the first season, it was very much, everyone's a suspect. This season, we're like a little Scooby gang. I love it. What was it like, kind of elevating their bond to like the next level?
We love the idea of unlikely alliances. We talked about that in the room because we had set up a lot of adversarial, you know, relationships in the first season because of suspicion. Because so much of the first season was about trust and the idea that here I thought these people were my friends and now they are suspects in my death. So the idea of the second season turning that on its head and bringing people together like the two guys, Simon and Xavier suddenly having a bromance, and Claire and Nicole being roommates and suddenly having a friendship. This was to us an echo of what was happening in the spirit world, because the spirit world, you're sitting with people you would never open up to, and yet because of your predicament, you kind of have to, or you're really an island. So we wanted to sort of echo that or have it reverberate in both worlds. And I think hopefully it was successful because we've got a cast, they all love each other, and we knew that too, so that would help with the chemistry.
Yeah.
We're not lying. This is like summer camp. These guys really do love each other, and I think that comes through on screen.
Oh, it absolutely does. It absolutely does. And going off of that, I feel like we need to talk a little bit about the romances this season. There was some things I was not expecting you guys to go as far as you did, and I loved it. I'd love to hear about specifically, Wally and Maddie's relationship, and then also Yuri and Charlie, and sort of like the journey he goes on to accept himself.
I think for all of us, but correct me if I'm wrong, you guys, I think that the idea of intimacy is really complicated, especially for young people. And I think with a character like Maddie, intimacy is not something she is really open to giving to other people. I think it takes a long time for her to open up in that way. So it felt like, what goes on in episode 7 felt like kind of a culmination of a really beautiful experience of Wally slowly and respectfully letting her open up and feeling like she can be comfortable and intimate with someone. And I think that that's something that's a beautiful character moment for her to be able to say, I feel safe and comfortable in this relationship, and I think that's an important thing to see. And I think to a certain extent it's the same with both Charlie and Yuri, who have sort of closed themselves off from other people for a long time. Charlie to protect himself, Yuri because he wants to be this sort of lone wolf in his own little bubble. I think that they finally can say to another person, I see you, you see me, and I feel safe and comfortable with you. It's really important to show that can be like a healthy culmination, I think, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, totally. And I feel like you saw that with so many characters. I mean, Xavier really opening up this season, even Rhonda and Quinn's friendship, and
Yes.
realizing that like even in the afterlife, like connection is so important.
Yeah, I think, and you're sort of touching on something that's really important to us also, which is we have a lot of people who just didn't tell each other the truth for a long time, big truths and small truths. I think that it's so easy for people, and this is true of my life, to just hold back the hard stuff or the difficult stuff or the scary stuff because you don't want to open up those doors. But the sooner you start talking about that, the more you start to connect with people because you hear people say, "Oh, I'm going through something like that too. I'm feeling that way too." And I think if anything, if the show can achieve anything and we get people more comfortable talking about when they're hurting, when they're scared, when they're lonely, I think that will be a great success.
Raising two teenagers, they want to feel seen and safe. And it's a very uncertain time. It just is, whether we want, we just have to say it out loud. It's a very uncertain, anxious world they live in. And I think feeling seen and safe, which we've done in this series, I mean, because the invisibility factor, that metaphor really does apply for a lot of kids, you
Mhm.
know? And I think we've tried really hard too to make sure that things aren't too facile, that things cost something. It does, it's painful and it costs. And I think Megan and Nate also from the beginning with Maddie's character, it was important that there was a lot of shame in her. You know, there was a lot of shame about her home situation. And part of her cover and wanting to be invisible as a living kid was
Yeah.
because she didn't want people to see too much. And there's a beautiful scene in the first season with Mr. Anderson where she is seen and it flips her the fuck out because when he knows she's dealing with alcoholism at home and she's really freaked out by it. It's beautifully acted, it's beautifully written. It was a really great moment that crystallized a lot about her character. And I think when it all echoes back to what, you know, reverberates back to what Megan just said about she's finally in the second season allowing people to see her.
Yeah. She's not trying to hide anymore.
I gotta ask about what it was like filming the Let's Dance with Wally and Rana and Charlie. That was so much fun. What was that like on set?
What is so funny is that our show works fast. Like we make this show really quick, so our actors have to be really nimble. And I'm not kidding. One of my best friends is a Broadway choreographer, Katie Spellman, and she, generated this dance for our actors to learn. I think, Megan, what, do we have 3 rehearsals?
Maybe 3.
Maybe 3 rehearsals, and then they had to go and do it in front of cameras, and they nailed it.
Nailed it.
It was such a joyful day because it's such a fun scene.
And it was great to be able to pick that song too, because we wanted to have the song like chosen and ready to go so that we could really lean into it. And it was just so much fun, blasting the song on set and getting to watch them, and everybody was having fun. It was a very, very magical day to be on
Thank you
set.
again to the Bowie estate. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
This season, we had been sort of seeing Janet and Mr. Martin as these big bads in a sense, but there's so many more layers to all of these characters, and especially when Janet reveals she's actually been trying to protect the ghost this whole time. And with Mr. Martin, is he really that bad? Is he just wrapped up in like his own guilt and this experiment that he kind of gets caught up in? I'd love to hear sort of like you guys' perspective on sort of showing these like dual sides to these characters where like, can we trust them, can we not?
A big theme of this show is that no one is defined by the worst thing that ever happens to them or the worst thing they've done, right? We've seen a lot of these characters. Xavier was not great, but he's really sort of redeemed himself. Like we watch as our characters work through that. And I think that we are always very interested in complex characters and really asking the audience to sort of decipher. I mean, all season long, you have to sort of look at Janet and wonder, is she a villain? Is she a victim? Is she a survivor? And how do we sort of view that character through those different lenses? How does it change the way that we feel about her, right? Because like what she's done is awful, but can you understand where she's coming from? And so I think every character we try and do that.
Because a lot of young people are, with the Marvel universe, and not to put that down, but or diminish it, because my kids have been raised with it. It's very black and white sometimes. No, honestly, and they don't read.
Good guys, bad guys.
Previous generations read. And the one thing about literature is characters are nuanced and there's motivation and there's a whole backstory. The person walks in and is fighting their own battles that you don't know about. And I think that Megan and I felt it was important with these characters that it wasn't going to be cartoonish, that you would go, oh my God, that person, if I had those circumstances and you're a person, raised in the 50s with real limitations and I think it makes viewers go, what would I have done? That's a really one of my favorite moments of the season was Maddie saying, maybe she should have my life because she'll do more with it. This person was so stunted by the era she grew up in. Maybe if she can grow up now, she'll discover a cure for cancer. Let her have my body. I'm not going to do that much with it, And I think that's a poignant. I just think there's layers to people which television allows you to do because you're spending real time with them. We've been able to explore more, and we're proud of it.
One thing that I think is fascinating is because we have these intergenerational characters, right? Characters from different time periods. There have been big advancements in the way that we deal with mental health or shame or guilt or feelings. And so I think it is, in a way, the story of Mr. Martin's a cautionary tale, right? Like what happens if you suppress dealing with your problem for that long? Which I know that like Megan and I talk about with grandparents or parents, people from different generations, they handle things very differently than we do. And there's a cost to that. It can turn into something bad. It can make you act badly. And it can put other people in jeopardy.
as the season ends, Janet has sort of like this new unfinished business of wanting to really learn the secrets of this school that supposedly Mr. Martin might know. What can you tease about that?
The character thing that we can tease about that is just that I love the moment when Janet chooses to stay to help everyone, right? That like, oh my God, actually, this confluence of both science and spirituality that leads to the answer, they think, still there's more to understand. And if she stays behind, maybe she can help everyone figure it out. So that we can definitely say is something we're curious to explore. Megan, what else can we say?
Well, to me, the dynamic is something that I think will be interesting is this idea of the roles being reversed a little bit. Now Janet is kind of in charge. Janet is taking initiative and saying, you did this the wrong way, but can we do it the right way? And I think that that's just a fascinating question for us is there a right way? And also, I think back to this idea of no one's truly good or bad. We're all complex and complicated people. What will Mr. Martin do now? What will he change? Is he capable of change, or has he just been in this horrible situation for so long and made so many kind of bad decisions along the way? Like what happens next? And I just think there's such incredible actors in those roles. It's sort of wonderful to think where can we go with that. And the power dynamic too. I think it's just interesting to look at that power dynamic when we flip it on its head. The student teacher, a male teacher and a female student, this woman who's saying, I am brilliant and I can do this and I don't need an instructor to tell me what to do. I think there's just so much we can kind of mine from that relationship. It's very exciting.
He's the keeper of the secrets, Kristen. Now we at least have, the truth is our third season has to explore the legend of Split River and why so many kids have died in that school. And, what does Mr. Martin know? And Janet now is not going to she's going to get answers. Now that you've seen Janet on her own, she's going to get answers.
No more tiptoeing.
Yes. Yes. Ready for business. I'm ready.
Yeah.
And I'm also curious, the end of the season, we do get to see that big, revelation that we've been wanting to know, like, can Maddie return to herself? Was that always the plan to have her go back? Did you ever kind of think like, maybe not? And also now that she is back, do you think that she'll still be able to connect to the ghosts since she has been in the spirit world before?
We honestly talked about so many versions of where this went. And I felt like they all had merit in their own way, but we really felt like after 2 seasons of putting this character through so much, it felt like a natural progression for her to have some element of closure on that piece of the story. I think that it was, everyone's been working toward this moment and they deserve a win. But then, of course, that opens so many questions of what's left behind. What can she do now? Can she continue to help them? And I think that's all that is to say, we want the story to keep going. Yes. And we want her to continue to be a part of that story. So we just have to see sort of how that unfolds as far as what she can and cannot do anymore.
We started the season knowing this was no longer a whodunit, but a how did it and why, a how and why. So we knew we had to satisfy a question, rather, or answer the question about a reunion of body and spirit. We did know this was out there. So we hope we provide a satisfying ending, but at the same time, open the door with some big questions.
A lot of questions.
I also do think we sort of looked at season 1 where we had a huge cliffhanger, and it was, as writers, a really fun episode to keep people sort of on the edge of their seat guessing what's going to happen next. And we did have to say to us, okay, if that was how we ended 1, what do we do? We gotta build, we gotta keep moving. So what do we do for season 2? Because there's that expectation. We wanted people to be excited and asking those questions. So we went big. You go big or you go home.
Exactly. And now, Simon is stuck in Mr. Martin's ghost scar. That opens up so many questions. Is he dead? Did he maybe switch places with someone? We saw Wally looking at his exit sign. Do you think a 3rd season could potentially kind of switch things and have now Maddie on a journey to help Simon?
You're way ahead of us. How dare you?
Yeah.
Because it's a great question and a great point, because the heart of the story is their friendship. I think if you take away every other element, and hopefully, you know, there are lots of relationships we're investigating and there are lots of questions we're trying to answer, but I think at the heart of the story is this friendship that can surpass time, space, death, life, all of those things. And I think there are so many questions we want to ask and we want to try to answer about, you know, when you're close to someone and you have that kind of unconditional love, how far will you go for them? And we've seen Simon went so far, he literally lost himself in this world. So it's a huge part of the story we're trying to tell overall. And I think we got a lot of big questions to answer that all go back to this friendship.
The near-death experience stuff with Xavier was so cool. I love that. And I love
good.
Where, you know, he's sort of, you know, we already have seen that Simon can at least speak to Maddie in the school, and now he's able to speak to her father. I'm just like, my brain is reeling. I'm so excited to that's gonna mean for the future of the show, with like people being able to see more ghosts.
There's so much to explore, so we really hope we get to keep doing it.
Yes. I'm hoping for a season 3, 4, 5.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the clues they gave us this season, those boxes. Oh, it was so awesome. Just really added to like the experience. You really felt like you were in the show trying to figure everything out.
There were a couple clues where I was like, wait, what is this? And then I watched the episode and I was like, oh my God, I wouldn't even have thought of that.
Oh my gosh, it was awesome. I want to thank you guys so much for your time. You really took the show to the next level. I can't wait to see what happens.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Congrats. You guys are killing it.
Thank you so much. It's so good to see you.
So good to see you guys. Thank you. Consider subscribing if you like this video and get even more entertainment news at popcultureplanet.net. See ya!